Good evening from Neptune. It's 7-ish o'clock at night, and it's early November of 2020. As of this moment, the next president of the United States has yet to be determined, so we don't know. History will correct this record. But here, me right now, Dr. Neptune, I'm showing you what I'm calling odds and ends, which are mostly box sets from my collection that I couldn't really fit into any of the other categories of the videos that I've been doing. So this is kind of like, odds and ends. I took the title from Bob Dylan in the band song. It's the first song on the Basement Tapes. And I'm starting with this, which is a compilation of Richard Pryor comedy albums. And the title of this is "And It's Deep Too." If you know that joke, you'll laugh. If you don't, then you will Google it and find out what the setup for that punchline is. This is the complete Warner Brothers recording, 68 to 92. This is the only comedy that I have in my collection, and this box set came out in 2000. It's a 9 CD set, and it's all his Warner Brothers albums. This is all I can show. I'm not going to show the back of the box, which has the titles of the albums. I'm not going to open the box to show the albums themselves because it would be inappropriate. Times have changed, I guess, or times now in 2020 are to the point where I really just don't feel comfortable at all using some of the language that Pryor uses in his album titles and even showing the images. So that I hope that viewers of this video understand that that's out of respect. And it's a recognition just that it would be best that I don't I don't go any further. You can see from my hands I'm a white man, and Pryor's humor often had to do very explicitly and in a raw way with racial issues, which then and now are combustible. So Pryor, hilarious. I love him. All of these albums are just funny from start to finish. I'm sure they're available in other formats. But I really like this box set, this collection, tribute to Richard Pryor. As I said, I don't have any other comedy in my collection. Back in the day, I had albums by Steve Martin. I think his first maybe three, four, five albums. That would be in the late 70s, early 80s. And I just embarked on a very frustrating and fruitless search through my entire living space here. Looked in all the places where I keep stuff and was unable to find what I thought I had, but maybe not anymore. But that was Steve Martin's book, Cruel Shoes. I bought the hardcover edition when it came out in 78 or 79, I think, and it's a collection of absurdist short stories. So in addition to his LPs, which I no longer have, I had or have that book, Cruel Shoes. Loved Steve Martin, and my father took me to see him live on stage at the New York State Fair, which is near Syracuse, New York, in those times. An outdoor arena, huge show. Right at his peak popularity, the King Tut, Wild and Crazy Guy days. So that was one of the first big events that I ever went to, actually. Steve Martin comedy concert. And this is all I have to show. This is his autobiography, his memoir, Born Standing Up. This picture is from that very era. In fact, this is very similar to the picture that's on the front of the Wild and Crazy Guy album. And there he is. This book, I think, came out in 07. And I bought this in an airport for some trip back when I still traveled by air. And this is a great read, very funny as you'd expect, but talks about Steve Martin. He had a long career, dating back to the 60s. I never, as a kid, of course, I had no perspective on that. But he's on the Smothers Brothers a lot, and of course his banjo playing is discussed here. Man, I wish I had that Cruel Shoes book, but it's eluded my my grasp. And then back in the day, also, the only other comedian that I really collected CDs of was Andrew Dice Clay. And I no longer have those CDs, but they were all funny. Also, probably totally inappropriate in 2020. I'm talking about the 80s here, mid-80s, and so what a boy in his early 20s thought was hilarious back then, maybe not so much now. Still, I have a lot of fond memories of Andrew Dice Clay, and especially, this is for comedy connoisseurs, if there's any viewing this. He had a double CD called The Day the Laughter Died, which is just an incredible piece of performance art like no other I've ever heard. It's ostensibly a comedy album with really no jokes. If that's available, that's a really interesting listen. The Day the Laughter Died by Dice Man. So that's my first odd and end is the comedy of these guys in my media collection. Then I'm going to go back to this set, which is called Ohm, the early gurus of electronic music. This is, I think, some of the oldest recorded music that I have in my whole collection. You see the dates there, 1948 to 1980. And this is really kind of a scholarly collection almost. I had no idea how long the history was of electronic music. I got this sometime when it came out. I'm looking for a date now. It would have been the late 90s probably. But in the mid to late 90s, there was kind of a boom in electronica music. It was the next big thing with Fatboy Slim and Prodigy and artists like that. So it would have been around that time that this was issued and that I got it. It includes all kinds of crazy, interesting things on primitive synthesizers, theremins. Okay, sorry about the brutal cut there. I just lost track of what I was saying and had to regroup a little bit. But here is the booklet for this, and full of just a wealth of historical information. I absolutely love this picture. This is the guy that invented the theremin, which was used by the Beach Boys and others in the 60s and to make weird spacey noises. That's Leon Theremin playing his own invention. And so these are all pioneers of electronics with their equipment. It's just fascinating to me here. This is one of the greatest science fiction movies of all time, Forbidden Planet, which had an all-electronic score. And so here's part of that. Other names on here that are notable: Stockhausen there, very well-respected avant-garde composer. There's Edward Varese, John Cage, the American, Terry Riley, and there's Brian Eno at the end, arranged chronologically. So this was just a fantastic find wherever I got it back then, and it taught me a lot about the early gurus of electronic music. Okay, forward I see here written by Brian Eno. So as I mentioned, in the late 90s there was this supposed new wave of music of Electronica. And this compilation came out in 2000, which hit most of the major artists and songs dating back from the 70s. This is a Rhino collection, and it was partially curated and produced by Moby. So it's chronologically ordered from Kraftwerk. This is one of the first times I realized that Donna Summer was really a pioneer in electronic music. Her songs, I Feel Love and Love to Love You Baby, they had some advanced electronic sounds there. You see other very familiar names, some more out there ones, but a good chronological progression through electronic music up through the late 90s. There's Moby's own song, one of his first ones, Go. So this was a cool find too. Couldn't really find electronic music on the radio back then. There was no internet, there was no streaming. So I really liked this music, but I had to basically go to the Tower or Virgin record stores and kind of sift through the bins to find things that I liked. And this is one of my all-time favorites from that era. This is an English import, and the date, 1997. And this has what have now become total classics of the electronica genre, electronic dance music. I played this so much, so many times, it's completely in pieces. Got this, I'm pretty sure, from Virgin Records and the shops at Caesar's Palace on the Las Vegas Strip. And just listen to this over and over. It's one of my very favorite CDs that I've ever owned. And pausing here to show you these songs in case you're interested in electronica. Every single one of these is worth looking up and hearing. Okay, so that was kind of a mini electronica segment. Now, here's this box called the Beat Generation. This is a compilation of artists from the beat era, mostly 50s. So you see some names there like Jack Kerouac, William Burroughs, so writers. This is a really interesting, very, very, very weird box set. Some of these selections are spoken word poetry or something like that. Others are songs from the era. There's a report somewhere on here of what exactly are the beats that was on CBS News. There you see Charlie Parker there, Rod McEwen, the poet, Lenny Bruce, the comedian, Tom Waits, who of course is not of the beat era, but is a inheritor of beat, philosophy and an approach to work. There's Carl Sandburg on Beatniks. Here it is, Charles Kuralt, the CBS News journalist. This is the audio from his report on the Greenwich Village poets. This would have been very early 60s probably. And concluding with the amazing poem by Allen Ginsberg called America, which I've actually played for classes that I've taught. So this is that, and the usual well-researched booklet. Steve Allen actually, believe it or not, was considered a beat or beat adjacent. Beatnik, there's Lenny Bruce. Who is that? Oscar Brown Jr. So musicians, comedians, poets, writers, they're all on this set. It's very, very interesting. Is this a Rhino? No, Word Beat. Oh, it is, yeah, Rhino Word Beat. Subdivision of Rhino. Okay. then just moving pretty much chronologically, next would be this set, the British Beat, best of the 60s. These are all British invasion songs. You probably know all these, or most of them anyway. I seem to remember my sister having a vinyl, like maybe 5-album set, which had a lot of this stuff on it. It would have been something she got from K-Tel back in the 70s, and I remember liking all that stuff when I was a kid. So, here's the British Beat set. And then, after that, this is a really classic box set. It's called Nuggets. It first came out in a double LP set, compilation, original artifacts from the first psychedelic era, 65 through 68. I believe Volume 1 is the original Nuggets, and then there's 3 more CDs with additional songs. Just a ton of them there. So this was a reissue of that in 98. I think the original album came out in the mid-70s and was admired by a lot of the early punks, and it's kind of back to basics sound. So a lot of these kind of obscure or very obscure, not many real big hits on here at all, but all pretty fun stuff. All very much the same sounding, though. It's my only issue with it. I don't really listen to this all that much because it is kind of repetitive, but still, this is just a great thing to have in the archive. And there's been a few kind of sub or offshoots of the Nuggets, the original Nuggets compilation. This is the other one that I have. It's Los Angeles Nuggets, where the action is. This one I really like. Actually, it's a 4 CD set, and this one came out in 2009. Another Rhino reissue. And there's one song in particular that I think is just awesome. It's by Gene Clark of the Byrds. And if I could find it on here, oh my gosh. Just didn't prepare very well for this. Okay, had to pause that to find it too. Los Angeles by Gene Clark. Los Angeles. See some other names on there, even Peter Fonda, Beach Boys, Nilsson, Rick Nelson. There's the Byrds, Love, Monkees. This is good stuff. This I actually like better than the original Nuggets. It's got a nice large format book to go along with it too. All right, and then last 2 things I have to show are just single band artifacts. This is not a box set. It's a special edition AC/DC Live 2-disc set from 1992. I saw AC/DC. I believe it was on this tour in Tennessee, and so this is a monument or a remembrance in part of that. They were just in top form here. They sound amazing, and I would say that Angus Young from AC/DC is one of the top 3 guitar players that I've ever seen live, that I was most impressed by. The other 2 being Eddie Van Halen and Prince. And this is just an absurd part of this. Vulgar and inappropriate, as you would expect from AC/DC. So what this is Rosie. It's a giant inflatable Rosie balloon to go with the song A Whole Lot of Rosie. There's the band playing in front of it, so you can see the scale of the thing. inflated behind them as they played. There's Angus and the rest of the boys. That's Malcolm Young, Angus's brother, who played rhythm guitar, and sadly died of complications due to dementia not that long ago, a couple years maybe. But this is them in their full raging glory. That's what they looked like when I saw them. And for the song Money Talks, they had these things rain down on the crowd. I was not in a good seat to get one of these things at the concert, but it came with this collector's edition set. So there's Angus Young on the money. In Rock We Trust. And finally, there's this. This is the Led Zeppelin box set, the complete studio recording. So this is everything that they recorded and released in their career, except for the double live album, The Song Remains the Same, soundtrack to the film. This is one of the first box sets, in the box set era, I would say. The date on this is 1993. And these were all remastered from the vinyl. So this was a must-have for the Led Zeppelin fan of that time. So you could have them all there. It's kind of nicely packaged, although I do have a quibble with the design. These are nice little books and everything, but for some reason they put all the album art on this tiny little square. So here's Led Zeppelin 3. You flip it over, Led Zeppelin 4. There's 2 CDs in this set. Some track listings and liner notes. This is physical graffiti. But it's just very dull. It would have been much better if they'd have had the whole page as the album cover at the very least. And this is a very dull box too. I don't know what they were thinking. But all Generation X and Baby Boomer types who loved Zeppelin have this box. There's no extras on any of these. In much more recent years, there have been digital remasters and reissues of this music with some additional tracks, but Led Zeppelin didn't have all that much in the vault, it appears. They were known for spending as much time as they needed to in the studio to get it right, and that seemed to be the ticket. Okay, so that was my odds and ends video. I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for watching. And click like, and leave a comment if you have something good to say or not. In any event, I will be back soon.